The Raptor is still the most hardcore off-road going variant in Ford's seemingly continuously growing Bronco lineup. But the thing is, when this thing came out in 2022, it started at 68 grand. Ford then raised the price in 2023 to 80 grand. And now in 2024, if you want to get yourself into a Bronco Raptor, you have to fork up at least $90,000. So what has caused them to raise the price $22,000 over the last couple of years? Well, the answer is, I don't really know, but there are a couple of new things for the 2024 model year, such as standard painted fender flares and the Code Orange appearance pack, which this Bronco Raptor does have. Gets you these cool stickers and the Code Orange beadlocks on the wheels. But anyways, I thought, since I've been spending the last few days with this large, unnecessary, but incredibly superhuman feeling vehicle, that we would see what it's like to actually drive this Bronco Raptor on the street. So we'll kind of do our normal sort of commute thing. We'll jump in this. We'll see what it's like to live with this thing around town. We'll jump on the highway, see what its manners are like there, and then we will end in the city. But it's been a couple of years since I've driven one of these. I've driven some of its competitors like the Wrangler 392 and have been able to compare things just a bit more. But let's talk about this in a bit of detail before we jump out onto the road. Now, this is powered by a 3-liter twin-turbo EcoBoost V6 in the Bronco Raptor. Makes 418 horsepower, 440 pound-feet of torque. Power is sent to either the rear wheels or all four wheels via a 10-speed automatic transmission. What's interesting about this, and there seems to be a Harley-Davidson convention going on to my right, so I do apologize, but what's interesting about this is we have since seen the reveal of the Ranger Raptor, which shares the same 3-liter EcoBoost V6 that makes about the same power, about the same torque. It's also four-wheel drive. It's got some of the off-road tech that this does, and it's $35,000 less. This feels like it's a bit all over the place already, so let's just go ahead and get to a walk around here on this particular Bronco Raptor. This is finished in Shelter Green, which pays tribute to all of the vehicles that Ford built in World War II, so it's a bit of an army green color. I thought it was hideous when it showed up, but it has grown on me quite a bit this week. Lots of nice flake, little metallic-y bits when the sun hits it. I don't know that I would necessarily get the Code Orange appearance pack if I were to go for Shelter Green, but it's definitely a statement here. You can see orange tow hooks and all. Every Bronco Raptor comes with a hardtop. I have the two front roof pieces off today because if you're going to have a Bronco, you may as well enjoy some open air experience during the summer. So we'll get to see what wind buffeting is like and everything on the highway because I don't have the roof with me. I left it at home, so we don't have a choice today. But if you want to store the roof, you are able to do so in this little bag that they provide, which hooks in here behind the rear seats. So you do have that storage option. Here in the back, we have a reinforced tailgate to handle this big 37-inch full-size spare wheel and tire. And as far as room goes, actually, the load surface is high, but comparatively, for how high this vehicle sits, it isn't really that bad. It's pretty easy for me at 5'11" to load things in and out of the back of this Bronco Raptor, which I have been doing quite a bit this week with the roof panels. All is good there. We also have this unique bit of chassis bracing back here, as well as some in the middle. And also we have a toolkit up in the glove box if you want to take the entire roof off and the doors off and everything else, because even though this is a Raptor product, it does still have all of the Bronco functionality, which means you can take just about everything off of this. You can add a ton of accessories and all of that stuff. This has the Trick Fox live valve suspension, which for one, makes this extremely capable off-road. It gives it over 13 inches of ground clearance. But what I have learned this week is that it makes it very livable on the street as well. And this is fun to drive in a street setting. You may look at this and think, oh, well, that's only going to be fun in the desert, off-road, whatever. But honestly, I've been able to take entrance ramps at like 45, 50 miles an hour. And really, the only thing holding it back are these BF Goodrich KO2 37-inch tires, because these Fox live valve shocks are adjusting the damping so often that you are always where you need to be. Let's jump in, take a look at the back seat. We'll show you up front. I mean, you guys know the Bronco by now, I feel like. I feel like I'm shooting today's video in a GTA server, but this is kind of a GTA looking vehicle, so I suppose that's appropriate. In the back seat, normal Bronco stuff. You have a handle, you've got a step, you can get yourself in here pretty easily. And once you're sat back here, even with this roof panel on, which is one piece, it does come off. You do have a pretty good amount of room. I've got plenty of headroom at 5'11", sat behind myself. Legroom isn't the greatest thing in the world, but I do still have enough to sit back here, I think, for a decent journey. In the middle, a couple of cup holders, not really much of an armrest, but you've got somewhere to put your drinks if you don't have a middle passenger. A little bit of a drivetrain hump in the middle, so it would probably be tight for a middle passenger. I love that these Broncos back here say no step, as in do not step on the center console, I suppose, if you're jumping up front or something. We've got netting back here, a little bit of storage, but otherwise not a whole lot going on back here because they have to make it a little bit barren and sparse because, of course, the doors come off, so they can't really be adding a ton of things back here to the Bronco. Let's pop the hood, show you this 3-liter twin-turbo EcoBoost V6. And then we'll jump on the road. I can't remember if this has hood struts. It does, yes. Okay, very good. So at least for your 90 grand, they'll throw in some hood struts. Very nice of them. Ford Performance under hood little cover, sound deadening, fire resistant material there. Otherwise, nothing much to look at under the hood. Just a mess of hoses, tubes, wires, no engine cover. I hope all of those hosses are watching for clip-ins on this fine evening. Shuts with some heft. And we'll jump on the road. One thing right off the bat that I don't really love are these door handles. I think since they painted these fenders, maybe they could expand that to these door handles, because if I'm paying $90,000 for a vehicle, I don't really want to see mold marks and just have this really cheap feeling on the door handles. So I think just painting them would go a long way. I wouldn't even necessarily say that you need to upgrade the quality of the plastic. They would just feel a lot nicer in the hand if they were painted. Up front, we have these optional suede finished seats. These are a $2,500 option, as is the Code Orange Appearance Pack. Standard, they are a leather, but I do like the suede material. Keeps your butt in place and also just kind of elevates the quality of the cabin here. Nice thick leather wrapped steering wheel, unique to the Bronco Raptor with paddle shifters. All looks quite nice. The driver does not have a handle to pull themselves in unless you count this one here on the dashboard, but there's no one that's high up, so this one doesn't really benefit you a whole lot, but you could still use it if you desired to. To fire up your Bronco Raptor, the start-stop button lives right behind the steering wheel, out of sight if you're back here below this air vent, and it looks like one of the headlights, and lots of different Easter eggs around this Bronco. And if you've watched any other Bronco videos, I'm sure you know where they are, but let's go ahead and fire this thing up. Nothing too new here inside the cabin as far as technology goes. Every Bronco Raptor gets this standard 12-inch infotainment screen. This is still running the sync system. We don't have the new infotainment that you see in the new Ranger, the Lincoln Nautilus, and some of the brand new Ford products. Not the biggest fan of this infotainment. I think it's too slow, too laggy, and if I'm paying $90,000 for a vehicle, regardless of functionality, it's got to have a better infotainment. Yes, you get wireless CarPlay, and once you're in CarPlay, things work okay, but the actual infotainment, when you start it up for the first time, literally takes 30 seconds to a minute to boot up, and it just has the Ford Performance screen or Raptor, whatever it says. I've had times this week where I am literally out of the garage, out of the neighborhood, down the street before I'm able to access my Apple CarPlay. If I'm backing out of the garage, my reverse camera doesn't work, things like that. So the first time of the day when you start this, it takes forever to boot up, and it's really frustrating. Otherwise, in this interior, materials aren't too bad. You get a leather or faux leather wrapped dash here. Lots of cool auxiliary toggle switches for you to wire in accessories. Nice button row here for your locking diffs, your traction control, your hazard switch, all of that stuff. Physical climate panel, lots of places to put things, a really deep center console. Window switches here in the middle, easy access. And overall, a very large feeling cabin. You can sit in here with a passenger and have a ton of room But I don't know. I still feel like for $90,000, I might desire just a bit more. And of course, the argument here is the $90,000 is for the functionality, the engine, the Fox Live valve shock, all the testing and technology that went into making this Bronco Raptor as capable as it is. But let's be so for real for a second. 90% of the people that buy Bronco Raptors are just doing this sort of thing in them, and today we're going to find out if it's worth it. So let's put our seatbelt down, let's jump out on the road and see what this thing is like to live with. Earmuffs are handy today because, spoiler alert, there is quite a bit of wind buffeting, so if you are allergic to videos of cars that have no roof or windows down, then I guess this may be a good time for you to click off. But all of you that want to go for a drive, let's go ahead and do that. Into reverse, we have our 360 camera, we have our reverse camera. Into drive, we do not have an automatic camera screen come up for our front camera, but you can push this physical camera button and you can see that. Obviously, cameras are pretty tip-top in this. Not the highest quality 360 camera that I've seen, as far as you don't have cameras that learn the ground under you or see the ground under you in this Bronco Raptor. But you can expand that front camera and side cameras and everything. So when you're off-roading, the cameras do come in handy quite a bit. I want to talk about one thing straight away, and that is that I have driven a large amount of these Broncos since they came out in 2021, even pre-Raptor. I drove some super early builds, and I always emerged from the experience thinking I really liked driving that SUV, but I would never be able to put up with all of the shakes and rattles and shimmies and just overall very poor build quality in the cabins. But after spending a few days with this Raptor, hold on a second. Equip the earmuffs. After spending a few days with this Raptor, I am so thrilled to report that they have stepped up the build quality. Which means you can go out wheeling, you can go have some fun in this and not have to hear your interior crumbling to pieces as you go over potholes. You guys can see different levels of noise there. Windows all the way down, windows half up, and then windows up with the roof off. Pretty much no matter what you do, it's a bit of a loud experience, but I don't really blame it for that because it certainly isn't aerodynamic, and you're honestly able to combat a lot of this noise with this B&O sound system, and we will do a test on that a bit later, I think on the highway, just to show off all of the power that it does have. But let's talk about driving dynamics here with this Bronco Raptor. We have a ton of different drive modes. We're going to go into sport to firm up this suspension just a bit as we go around this sharp corner. A little bit of understeer there. You can hear those KO2s absolutely howling. But for the most part, like I said earlier, I mean, this suspension stays put. It keeps this thing in line. And that's really nice because it means you can have a super capable off-road machine like this that's built for high-speed desert running, but you can still go out on the street and you can drive it like normal and not have to worry about like drastic understeer and flipping over or anything, obviously to an extent, you know, but what I'm trying to say is you can still have fun on the street and it isn't really that sketchy. Sport mode also sharpens up the 10-speed automatic. It makes the steering a bit heavier, and Another thing I really like about this and all other Raptor products from Ford is you can adjust different aspects of your drive mode on the fly with these steering wheel mounted buttons. So I'm in sport mode right now, but if I want to make my steering lighter, I can do that with the comfort mode here on the steering wheel switches. I can put my exhaust into Baja if I feel like being even more obnoxious. And you don't have to do that every time because you can set your own Raptor mode, like a My mode, which is accessed with this little R button down here next to your steering toggle. Go back into normal there. See an Altima cutting off a Corolla Cross. Normal activity on the Tesla today. Go ahead and jump on the highway. You guys can observe what our noise level is like at 70 miles an hour if you were to take your Bronco on the highway with the roof off. So we're in 10th gear, 76 miles an hour, we're revved just over 2,000 RPM. We'll talk a bit more about this 10-speed later, but it certainly is at an advantage for when you are doing highway cruising to keep this 3-liter revved a bit lower for increased fuel economy, I suppose. This week I've been getting 14.3 mpg. The TheTopher spent the first half of the week with this Bronco Raptor. He put quite a few miles on it. I've put quite a few miles on it. Mostly mixed driving. We've done 373 miles total, which is a bit more driving than we usually do. And this is done just under its mixed rating of 15 mpg, which I don't think is all that bad considering all of the spirited driving that we've done with this Bronco Raptor. Let's set our cruise control, which is as easy as literally clicking one button on this side of the steering wheel. Ooh, what do we have here? A dart, perhaps? Oh yeah, dart swinger, very cool. I've got to say though, I want to bring up a point. Some of you that drive older Ford products will know that if you have like an old SVT Lightning or even an old Ranger or Explorer or something Ford product from the early 2000s, they had kind of these soft touch rubber buttons on the steering wheel. They did not age well at all. I mean, most of them are ripped, they're torn, they don't even work anymore. And it's a very similar case here with the buttons on the Ford Bronco steering wheel, regardless of if you get a Raptor or a regular Bronco. So I'm curious to see how these are going to hold up over time, because to be honest, right now they feel a lot like those old school Ford buttons that just absolutely deteriorated after 15 to 20 years, which I know is a long time, but you buy a car like this to enjoy for a long time. It's an enthusiast car, so I suppose we'll see. Time will tell with these buttons. Otherwise, let's talk about seating position here on the highway. What's it like to sit in this Bronco as you are cruising? Well, these seats, they're decently supportive. They're a little stiff. As far as adjustability goes, you have a decent amount of lumbar. Actually, I take that back. It does come out quite a bit. So if you've got back issues, you can move that lumbar out quite a bit. Really good bolsters, and the suede keeps you in nicely. But I think a long trip in this would get a bit tiresome. Actual seating position, I've got the seat in the lowest setting. I can see the front of the hood. Really confidence-inspiring seating position here in this Bronco Raptor. You just got to pay attention to where you're actually at, where you're placing this, because it takes up pretty much the whole lane. It is extraordinarily wide, this thing. So you have to make sure that you are paying attention, you're in your lane at all times. It's a good day to be out with the roof down, and we're enjoying that as well ourselves. elbow comfiness, you can see I'm driving here with my elbow rested up on the door panel. You're able to do that with the architecture of this interior. I would say not really as cozy as if you were in a Lexus GX or a Land Cruiser. It's a bit of a hard material here on top of the door panel. You can do it. A really nice place to rest your elbow though is on the lower part of the door panel. It's a little bit awkward positioning wise with the center console. You kind of have to hold your hands really low on the steering wheel if you want to be able to rest and set yourself up to have your elbows resting. But otherwise, I mean, the cabin is super open. You've got a ton of room in here. You certainly do not feel claustrophobic. Small blind spots behind the C-pillars there. The mirrors are a pretty adequate size. They're far forward because the doors have to come off in this thing. Let's quickly get a song going so you guys can hear this B&O while we are on the highway. FJ Cruiser. So as you can see there, very short sound system test, but I just wanted to demonstrate the power of this system. Going down the highway with the roof down, this B&O, not only is it powerful, it's pretty crispy as well. I'm honestly happy with the overall quality of this sound system. It sounds like maybe they've gone through and retuned some things, because I don't remember it being this nice when this B&O system first came out in some of the earlier trucks. All right, manual mode. Important research. Let's see what kind of noise we make here under the bridge. Pretty decent. I mean, okay, let's be honest. These exhaust modes, honestly, the only real difference I notice is from quiet to Baja. We'll do a bit of driving in quiet mode so you guys can observe that. But I found a lot more difference, honestly, in the Ranger Raptor exhaust modes as opposed to the Bronco Raptor and even the F-150 Raptor. Okay, I'm going to attempt, I think, to lose the earmuffs for a bit here as we just do a little bit of city driving at 40 miles an hour and below. I mean, the thing is, you guys probably already know about this car. I just wanted to take it into a setting and kind of show you the reality of living with this truck. And the truth of it is, most of the time, it's fine. And from an outward appearance, like looking at this thing, it does appear a lot more cumbersome than it actually is. You can take this most places, unless obviously it physically won't fit. But like, I've been able to fit this in my garage this week with no problem because it isn't very long. It's not tall enough to where it hits the roof, though the antenna does brush the house when I go in, but that's okay. It's meant to kind of boing around like that. I guess what I'm trying to say is I haven't found a ton of issues living with this week that are size related. I've been more annoyed with the infotainment system than the width of this Bronco Raptor. Driving around town, it feels like Ford has also done quite a bit of improvement with this 10-speed automatic, and I'll admit, I'm not a huge believer in this 10-speed, and that's across the line. F-150, Mustang, Bronco. I've never really liked it for a couple of reasons. The first reason was the tuning was dreadful. I'll be honest. It was clunky. It never knew what gear it wanted to be in. It was constantly searching. They have mostly improved that for 2024 to where I don't even really pay attention to this. I don't really notice it shifting gear, apart from the audible aspect of it, of course. The thing that gets me is, in a performance car like this, especially a Bronco Raptor that isn't really about straight line speed, I'd like to engage with the car a little bit more. I'd like to be able to have maybe an 8-speed, say the ZF8 HP or something similar, and be able to kind of row gears and engage with this a bit more. The 10-speed is just so slurry and really just, I don't know if boring's the right word, but I'm not inspired by the 10-speed in really any setting. But if you're someone that doesn't really care about that, you just want a quick, smooth transmission that doesn't have a whole lot of personality, you will have absolutely no problem with this 10-speed because they've finally gotten it dialed in here for 2024. I guess that was a long-winded way of saying the transmission is fine, it's just not very exciting. Now, you guys know that this is a particularly slim section of road. I think I might be out of a lane on the left. If not, it is quite close. Let's change lanes, probably get a better view of it here. You can probably actually see on the camera how I am in the lane. Oh yeah, okay, well, it looks like we've got like maybe 6 inches on either side here. This is a pretty slim road. But now comes the ultimate test. We'll drive this thing downtown and see what it's actually like around the city streets. Ride quality in this thing is excellent. It is still a body-on-frame vehicle, and the Raptor actually has unique body mounts or frame mounts that are stiffer than the regular Bronco, but that doesn't really affect the ride too much from what I can tell because it's compensated for by these Fox live valve shocks. And you can go down a road like this with a ton of imperfections, and the ride is a little stiff, but it's supportive. It's not crashy. It's not rattling you all over the place. And I think that's good for a vehicle like this. You don't want to be bouncing all over with a vehicle that has this much suspension travel because frankly, I think it would make you nauseous. So they've got the ride dialed in here really, really nice for a street setting. And you can always firm it up a little bit more with the press of this button here. Get a bit of road noise from these KO2s. You can hear them echoing off the buildings. Let's put our exhaust into sport and we'll let you see. We'll let you hear what that sounds like. You get some cool noises in this thing, some cool turbo blow-off sounds, and there is a bit of character here. So a lot of it's kind of killed for me by this 10-speed, but you can still have fun blasting around town. And honestly, this is what I love so much about the Bronco Raptor, is you can take an incredibly capable, purpose-built vehicle like this out on the town. It's a beautiful night. I've got the roof off, and it doesn't beat you up. It's not offensively loud. It's placeable enough, surprisingly, in a city setting like this. The steering's light enough to maneuver it. And you can really just enjoy yourself, and you can look pretty cool doing it. I mean, it's definitely a sight to see, this Bronco Raptor, that is for sure. So then, all things considered, if you want to do it, I think you should just do it. I would argue that maybe you should go and test drive some other Bronco variants, because I don't know that you would be getting a ton of value for money if you are simply going to be using this Bronco Raptor as a daily driver, doing things like I've just been doing today. But you should know that you can, and I think that's pretty cool. And that's kind of where this Bronco Raptor comes out on top when comparing it against the Wrangler 392, because while the Wrangler 392 is certainly more entertaining in just about every way, the Bronco Raptor is what I would want to actually get into on a day-to-day basis and live with, apart from the very irritating infotainment. But in every other aspect, it's quite livable, this thing. And I was pretty shocked to learn that this week on just how comfortable I was daily driving this off-road machine. I think it's a bit ridiculous how expensive Ford has made this. Obviously, Ford is essentially just charging more because they can. There's no real reason that the price has gone up $22,000 over the past 2 years, other than dealerships being extremely greedy and marking these things up beyond what they ever should have been priced at. And also Ford just realizing that they've built something incredibly capable and nice to live with, and that they can just charge more for it. I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to. You know, Jeep is charging close to 100 grand for their Wrangler 392, so why shouldn't Ford charge 100 grand for their Bronco Raptor? I don't know, but I guess at the end of the day, if you have the means, this would be a really cool statement for you to make, a really nice car to live with, which honestly really sounds preposterous, but sometimes in life, you just have to do silly things. You just have to do what makes you happy. And if a Bronco Raptor is going to make you happy, I say go for it. All right, guys. Well, that is just about going to wrap it up for us today with the Ford Bronco Raptor. I've had way more fun with this Bronco this week than I thought I would. A lot of that probably just the Bronco aspect of this Raptor, but if you're somebody that is genuinely going to take this to the dunes, know it is very capable. If you're going to do some extreme off-roading, you're able to kind of have a bit of a one-car solution if you're willing to make the sacrifice of 14 mpg and quite a bit of width. But in most settings, you'll be fine, unless you live in like New York City or something crazy where it is physically impossible to have it. Also, if you're able to swallow the newly changed $90,000 base price, but I don't know. I've had fun with it, so I guess that's all that really matters. So let's jump out. Let's take one last look at this Bronco Raptor. Pull it into a neighborhood where I feel like it would kind of be at home. I love these orange running lights. Oh, man. Yeah, those look the business. Cool, guys. Well, that's the Bronco Raptor. Not much new for 2024, but hopefully you were able to get a little bit of an idea of what it's like to drive in a city setting and kind of what it's like to live with highway and everything else. If you have any questions about the Bronco Raptor, let me know in the comments. Also, TheTopher and I filmed a Bronco Raptor versus Ranger Raptor comparison video with this very Bronco. So if you're curious to learn about that as well, go over to the TheTopher channel and check that out. You can get his driving impressions on this Bronco Raptor as well. But as for me, that will wrap it up for us today. Thank you guys again all so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.